My name's Nolan, I'm 28, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the other one. Not the golden child, not the favorite, just the one who was there. My younger brother Wyatt, he was the prize. The golden boy, star soccer player, straight-A student, all-around mom and dad's little trophy. And me? I was the guy who fixed his car when he crashed it. The one who paid off his parking tickets so our parents wouldn't ground him from Cancun. The guy who made excuses when he skipped holidays just to keep the peace. They'd call it being a good older brother. I called it being invisible with a wallet. It was easier when I lived out of state. I moved to Chicago right after college, took a job in IT, and slowly built something decent. I had a studio apartment, a Nolanable income, a quiet life. But every time I visited home, usually for birthdays, weddings, or when mom missed me, I became the extra. The +1 to my own family. Conversations circled around Wyatt, his promotions, his new girlfriend, the charity run he'd done last fall. Even when I shared news, like my recent promotion to senior analyst, it barely earned a blink. My mom smiled, polite but distracted, already shifting topics to Wyatt's upcoming business trip to Dubai. My dad grunted something about tech jobs not being real work, then changed the channel to the football game. Still, I kept showing up. Not because I believed it would change, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd see me, appreciate me, or at least acknowledge I was trying. I brought gifts every Christmas, covered part of their mortgage during COVID when things got tight, transferred Wyatt $500 here, $300 there, always, just until Friday, and always with a thank you text that felt copy-pasted. My parents never asked where the money came from. They assumed I was doing fine. You don't have a family of your own, Mom once said. You can afford to help your brother. Then came my dad's 60th birthday. It was a backyard barbecue, nothing fancy, just family and neighbors and cheap paper plates stacked with burgers. I flew in for the weekend, spent half a Friday night helping Mom hang decorations, even paid for the cake when she realized the one she ordered was too small. Saturday rolled around and by noon the house was packed. Wyatt arrived fashionably late, as always, waltzing in with a new watch and his girlfriend Lila, who just launched a YouTube channel about minimalist living while wearing $400 sandals. My dad lit up when he saw him, hugged him, laughed like a man who hadn't smiled in weeks. Then he looked at me, nodded once, and went back to Wyatt like I was a neighbor who brought chips. Dinner came. Drinks flowed. People gathered around the fire pit, trading stories and teasing each other in that surface-level way families do when there's unresolved tension buried under decades of silence. That's when it happened. Someone, maybe my cousin Owen, who had a few too many drinks, asked me what I'd been working on. I told them about a new security system I helped design for a logistics firm, how it was saving them thousands monthly. The conversation barely lasted a minute before Wyatt jumped in, talking about some deal he closed last week. My dad clapped him on the back, grinning. That's what I'm talking about, he said, beaming. Now that's how you make a real difference. I laughed. Not out of joy, out of that hollow, bitter Nolan-F that settles in when you realize you'll never measure up. Guess all I'm good for is paying the bills, huh? I joked. My dad turned, drink in hand, and said it loud enough for the whole patio to hear. You've always been a drain, Nolan. Your brother's the one who actually matters. The world didn't stop spinning. Nobody dropped their drinks or gasped in horror. A few people laughed awkwardly. Mom tried to shush him, but it was too late. My stomach dropped, not because I was surprised, but because for once he said it out loud. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell or storm off or throw a drink like in the movies. I just stood there for a second, nodding slowly, then walked inside, grabbed my suitcase, booked an early flight back to Chicago, and left. No note. No goodbyes. Just silence. The days that followed were oddly peaceful. No texts. No calls. No fake check-ins or how are yous from relatives trying to play neutral. I went back to work. Focused on myself. Canceled the monthly auto transfer I'd been sending Wyatt just until he gets on his feet. Cut off the family plan I'd still been paying for, including the data Wyatt used to stream music at the gym. Logged out of the shared Netflix I'd been letting them all use. Quietly disappeared from their financial lives, one subscription at a time. 3 weeks passed. Then one night, while I was making dinner, my phone buzzed. Wyatt. A text, short and annoyed. Why did you stop sending me money? I stared at it for a minute, then typed, didn't want to waste it on someone who already had everything that mattered. I never hit send so fast in my life. After that, things got interesting. My mom called a few days later. I didn't answer. Then came a flurry of texts, first concerned, then guilt-trippy, then angry. You're being immature. We're family. Wyatt needs you right now. I ignored them all. I wasn't being cruel, I was just done. But what I didn't expect was how fast things would unravel without me. It started subtly, little signs that the scaffolding I'd been quietly holding up for years was buckling now that I wasn't there to keep it steady. The first call came from my Aunt Carla. She never really picked sides, just floated in the background with her passive shrugs and polite nods. But this time she wasn't so neutral. "Nolan," she said, after I let her call go to voicemail and she tried again immediately. "Your mom's in tears." Aunt Carla's voice was tight on the phone. "She says Wyatt's behind on rent. Your mom and dad are dipping into their savings to bail him out." "What's going on?" I didn't answer right away. I just sat there at the kitchen table, staring at the wall, like maybe the drywall would finally give me permission to say what I'd been swallowing for years. I stopped helping. I said, flat, no sugarcoating. "Yeah, that meant all that money Wyatt had been flashing around? It was never really his to begin with." There was a beat of silence. Then Carla sighed, like she'd seen this train wreck coming a mile away but was still sad to see it happen. "You know how they are," she said. "They don't think about consequences until they're buried in them." "Maybe that's the only way they'll finally learn," I replied, and hung up without another word. After that, everything started sliding downhill or uphill, depending on how you looked at it. Apparently, without the $500 I used to send Wyatt every 2 weeks like clockwork, he missed 2 months' rent back-to-back. Credit card debts started piling up like snow in a blizzard. Lila, the YouTube star whose idea of a hard day's work was choosing fonts for her thumbnails, dumped him the minute his Venmo started bouncing payments. She even posted a tearful breakup video titled, "Leaving a Toxic Relationship, My Truth," and, of course, it pulled more views than everything else she'd ever posted. I'll admit, the irony wasn't lost on me. But the real shocker? The fallout didn't stop with Wyatt. My parents' finances started crumbling too, piece by piece. When I was younger, my dad used to puff his chest out and brag about how real men handled their money without whining. What he left out was how much silent help he had tucked under the table. Like the $800 I slipped them every Christmas so they could fix the roof or patch up the heating. Or that personal loan I paid off quietly 5 years ago after his so-called business venture went belly up. Mom always told me he didn't need the shame. Well, now that I wasn't in the background cleaning up after them, the cracks started showing, and fast. Their internet got shut off. Mom had to cancel her book club meetings because they couldn't host anymore. Dad's truck got repossessed right out of their driveway. Turns out he'd been using Wyatt's name to open up new credit lines, something nobody admitted to until the debt collectors started dialing Wyatt's number. And here's the part that really twisted the knife. Nobody came to me for help. Not directly, anyway. They sent out the bat signal through everybody else instead. Aunt Carla. My cousin Owen. Even an old buddy from high school messaged me trying to play peacemaker. Heck, someone even tried to guilt-trip me through LinkedIn. Talk about desperate. The final straw was an email from my mom. Subject line, "Come home." She kept it short, but every word read like it had been plucked straight out of a manual called How to Manipulate Without Ever Saying You're Sorry. "Your father isn't well. Wyatt's doing his best. I know you're angry, but this family needs you. We've always needed you. Please think about what really matters." I read it 5 times. I opened a draft to reply. Typed a few sentences. Deleted them all. Because, honestly, what was there left to say? That I had thought about what mattered for 28 years and it clearly wasn't me? That while they rented a boat to celebrate Wyatt's high school graduation, they sent me a signed Hallmark card for finishing college? That every birthday I stood scraping plates in the kitchen while Dad bragged about Wyatt's potential to anyone who'd listen? Instead, I let my silence answer for me. I didn't respond. And for the first time, they finally had to sit with the fainolang of what it meant to miss me. Not the me they half-listened to over dinner. Not the me they leaned on when the bills piled up. But the real me, the one they never really saw. And that silence? It grew louder every day. Aunt Carla texted again. "You need to see this," she wrote, attaching a screenshot of a Facebook post from my mom. It was a photo of Mom and Dad sitting on a porch that definitely wasn't theirs, probably borrowed from a neighbor just for the picture. The caption read, "Family isn't about money. It's about love. Some people forget that when they walk away." The comments section was flooded with heart emojis and "You're such strong parents" from people who had no idea what was really going on. Half-truths, sympathy from strangers, the usual. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I just stared at it, fainolang something I couldn't quite name. Not anger. Not sadness. Just this strange, cold clarity. This wasn't anything new. It was just the first time I didn't rush in to hide it. But what came next? Yeah, even I didn't see that part coming. 2 weeks after that Facebook post, I got a letter. An actual letter. Not a text. Not an email. An envelope forwarded from my old college address, my name written in that tight, proper cursive Mom always used when she wanted to look formal. I opened it slowly, half expecting another round of guilt wrapped up with a bow. But what I found was different. Inside was a handwritten note about a page long. There were tear stains smudged in the corner and a coffee ring near the bottom where she must have spilled her drink trying to figure out what to say. It wasn't an apology, not really. But it was something else. Something raw. It read, "Nolan, I know you probably won't read this. And if you do, you'll think I'm just making excuses. Maybe I am. Maybe I deserve the silence. But I need to explain something. Your father's not doing well. He won't admit it, but the doctor says it's his heart. He's scared. That's why he lashes out. That's why he said what he said. Wyatt's struggling too. He's not as strong as you think he is. He never was. You were always the one we could lean on, not because we didn't love you, but because you handled things. You were steady. Unalienable. Maybe that wasn't fair. Maybe we leaned on you too much. But Nolan, families make mistakes. And right now we're falling apart. We need you. Please come home." I stared at the letter for a long time. It should have cracked something open inside me. Should have pulled at the old guilt I used to carry around like a second skin. But instead, I felt nothing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was just tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with a long nap or a weekend off. The kind that settles deep in your bones after you've carried too much for too long. Still, part of me couldn't help wondering. What if it was true? What if Dad really was sick? What if Wyatt really wasn't as bulletproof as everyone always said? What if there were pieces of the story I hadn't seen, hidden behind all their heavy expectations? So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I looked. Not by calling. Not by asking. I just did my own digging. First stop was Wyatt's LinkedIn. Still listed as a freelance consultant. No updates in over 6 months. The company he used to brag about working for had quietly scrubbed his name from their website. Next, I checked public records. Evicted. Twice. Then I looked up my parents' house. Pre-foreclosure. And just like that, everything clicked into place. The letter. The Facebook post. The sudden parade of long-lost relatives pretending they cared. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because the bank had finally stopped picking up their calls. But here's the thing. What they didn't know, what they could never have guessed, was what I had done a week after walking away from that backyard barbecue. While they were still passing around the potato salad and singing Wyatt's praises, I had started browsing property listings. Their block. Their neighborhood. And I bought a house. Not to live in. Not to rent out. Just to have. It was 2 doors down from theirs. A beat-up little place with a sagging roof and cracks in the foundation. I paid cash. Put it under a holding company, no way to trace it back to me. Changed the mailbox, parked a junker in the driveway, let it blend in like it had always been abandoned. They never noticed. But they would soon. Because while they were busy scrambling, trying to figure out why the bills kept stacking up, why Wyatt's safety net vanished overnight, something bigger was shifting quietly into place. And it all came to a head on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. I was working from home when my phone lit up. Unknown number. I let it roll to voicemail. A few minutes later, another call. This time it was my mom. I answered. Her voice was shaky, raw. "Nolan," she said, "someone bought the house next door. It's you, isn't it?" I stayed silent. Just let the quiet stretch between us. "I saw your name on the permit," she said, her voice cracking. "You've been here this whole time? Watching us?" Still, I didn't say a word. "I don't understand. Why would you?" Finally, I spoke. Calm. Steady. The way I'd practiced it 100 times in my head. Because I wanted to see what would happen when the so-called drain stopped carrying all the weight. She started to cry. Not loud sobs. Not some big dramatic show. Just these quiet, broken sounds that barely made it through the phone. "Nolan, we're losing everything." "You already lost me," I said, and I hung up. But it didn't end there. Of course it didn't. Wyatt, in true Wyatt fashion, tried to spin it online. Posted a now-deleted tweet accusing me of being toxic, abusive, selfish. Painted himself the victim like he always did. But here's the thing. I didn't need to post receipts. I didn't have to drag out old bank statements or Venmo transfers. People remembered. The cousin whose college books I bought. The uncle whose hospital bill I covered. The niece I surprised with a laptop during lockdown so she could keep up with her classes. They reached out. Quietly. "We didn't know," they said. "We're sorry. I didn't need an army. I just needed the truth to finally breathe." Now, foreclosure signs pop up on the block like weeds. The family group chat, once filled with Wyatt memes and guilt-trippy reminders, has gone stone-cold silent. And me? I sit on the porch of that little renovated house down the street, sipping coffee, watching them scramble. Not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but out of clarity. Because sometimes, the only way people ever learn your value is when they feel your absence. I thought that was the end of it. Thought the story had finally settled. But then, another envelope showed up. This time, it wasn't from my mom. It was from Wyatt. Inside was a check, signed, and a note that just said, "You win." I stared at it for a long time. The check wasn't much. Maybe enough for a cheap apartment for a month or two. Nothing life-changing. But the message behind it said everything. You win. As if all of this had been some game. As if finally standing up for myself, finally being seen, was about beating him somehow. That's when it hit me. He still didn't get it. None of them did. This was never about winning. I didn't walk away to keep score. I didn't leave because I wanted revenge. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Even if, sometimes their pain felt like long overdue justice. No, I left because I was done. Done being their emotional ATM. Done being their unpaid fixer. Done being the afterthought at my own family gatherings. Even as everything crumbled around them, they still found a way to make me the villain for finally stepping out. I didn't tear the check up. I didn't cash it either. I just slid it into the back of a drawer. Left it there like a fossil from another lifetime. And then, I did something they never expected. I moved on. I sold the house next to theirs. Didn't even bother visiting during the closing. Let a local investor snap it up. Last I heard, he's planning to tear it down and build something new. A clean slate. That felt right. I didn't want to keep watching them unravel. Didn't want to keep replaying old hurts like reruns on a broken TV. I wanted a life where I mattered just for existing. Not for what I could give. Not for what I could fix. So I started saying yes to things I used to put off. I booked a trip to Iceland. Just me, my camera, and absolutely no itinerary. Life didn't get louder after I walked away. It got quieter. And somehow, that quiet filled in all the cracks I'd been patching over for years. I started simple. Signed up for a cooking class, because I was sick of eating standing over the sink, reheating frozen meals that tasted like regret. I even joined a hiking group, something I used to laugh at, thinking it was just a bunch of bored office workers trying to find meaning in a step counter. But it turns out, strangers you meet on a trail can feel more like family than the ones waiting at home ever did. And somewhere along the way I met Harper. She was nothing like the people I grew up around. Blunt, sure, but kind too, the kind of person who called you out not to hurt you, but to make sure you didn't shrink yourself to fit into places you'd already outgrown. First time we got coffee, she caught me introducing myself by my job title and raised an eyebrow. "You're more than what you do," she said, stirring her coffee. "Unless you really want to live your whole life inside a box that small." With Harper, there was no proving, no performing. Just breathing, existing, being seen without a price tag attached to it. Coffee turned into walks. Walks turned into long, late-night calls that stretched until sunrise. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to buy my way into someone's affection. Nearly a year after I walked out of my family's backyard, a call came in. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail without thinking twice. Later, when I listened, I recognized the voice immediately. Dad, but not the version I grew up with, loud, certain, heavy-handed. This one sounded tired. Smaller somehow. Cracked around the edges. "Nolan, I don't know if this number still works. I don't even know if this matters anymore. I miss you. Your mom does too. Wyatt's figuring it out, I guess. I was wrong, son. I was wrong for a long time. And I know that might not mean anything now. But if you ever want to talk, I'm here." I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I just sat there, holding the phone against my chest like it might burn a hole straight through. I didn't call him back. Not right away. Instead, I waited. A week. Then two. One Sunday afternoon, while Harper and I were folding laundry in our shared apartment, a real home, the kind I'd never had before, I said, almost without thinking, "I think I'm ready to write him." Harper didn't push. She just nodded, kept folding a towel. "Because you want closure?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "No," I said. "Because I'm ready. That's it." When I sat down to write the letter, I didn't let anger hold the pen. I didn't let bitterness choose my words. I just told the truth. "Dad, I got your voicemail. I've spent a long time trying to understand us. I'm not writing to blame you. I just want you to know that leaving wasn't about hurting you. It was about saving myself. I needed space to figure out who I was when I wasn't busy being who you all needed me to be. I'm not a burden. I never was. I'm not coming back to fix the past. But if you're willing to meet me where I am now, I'm open to talking. Here's my number." I hit send without ceremony. No big moment. No second guessing. I had finally stopped building my life around hope someone else might change. Weeks drifted by. And then one evening, a text popped up from an unfamiliar number. "Thank you. I don't deserve this. But I'll try. Dad." A few days later, we met for lunch. No dramatic reunions. No tears. Just two men, each carrying their own wreckage, trying to speak without dropping it all on the table at once. Dad asked about my work. About my life. About Harper, and for once, when he said her name, it wasn't through the lens of who he thought I should be dating. It sounded like he cared about me, not the version of me that fit inside his head. At one point, he paused, looked down at his hands, and said, "I really messed up." I didn't sugarcoat it. "Yeah, you did," I said quietly. He nodded like he had been waiting years to hear that said aloud. "I'm trying to be better," he said. "Even if it's late." I nodded back. "It's not too late," I said. "It's just a different road now." And that was healing. Not some magical forgiveness scene. Not a Hallmark movie ending. Just two people learning how to build something new out of all the broken parts. As for Wyatt, he didn't reach out right away. I heard he finally found a real job. Nothing flashy. No big promises. Just work. Steady work. Eventually, he sent a text too. "I didn't understand what I was asking from you back then. I see it now. I'm sorry." I didn't rush a reply. When I finally answered, it was simple. "I be all of you. Let's take it one step at a time." And we did. That was 2 years ago now. My life today isn't some dramatic transformation. It's not a Netflix special. It's not a revenge fantasy where I ride off into the sunset victorious. It's quieter. Simpler. Mine. I go to work. I come home. I cook with Harper. I laugh. I sleep. I live. I send birthday cards to my parents. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we don't. Wyatt and I grab a drink once a month. No handouts. No old grudges. Just two guys figuring out how to be brothers without all the baggage. See, life doesn't always give you the ending you wanted. But if you're brave enough to walk away when it hurts too much to stay, you might just get the ending you needed. And I did. Because I was never the drain. I was the one keeping everything standing when nobody else even noticed. And now? Now, I'm building something of my own. And this time, it's built to last.